Opium has been used by humans since the Neolithic age. At least 17 finds of Papaver somniferum from Neolithic settlements have been reported throughout Switzerland, Germany and Spain, including the placement of large numbers of poppy seed capsules at a burial site, Bat Cave in Spain, which has been dated to 42 centuries BC. The first cultivation of poppy seeds occurred in Mesopotamia by Sumerians, who called opium the plant of joy. Tablets found at Nippur, a Sumerian spiritual center south of Baghdad, describe the collection of poppy juice in the morning and its use in production of opium. Opium cultivation was continued by the Babylonians and Egyptians. Opium, together with wild hemlock, a poisonous plant, was used to put people to death without pain. Opium was used to put people to sleep during painful surgeries. It was traded via the Mediterranean Sea into Europe. In Egypt, the use of opium was generally restricted to priests, magicians and warriors. Its invention is credited to Thoth and is said to have been given to Ra, the god of sun, as treatment for her headache. A figure of the Minoan goddess of narcotics, wearing a crown of 3 opium poppies circa 13th centuries BC, was recovered from the sanctuary of Gazi, Crete, together with a simple pipe. The gods of Greek mythology, Hypnos, sleep, Nyx, night, and Thanatos, death, were depicted holding poppies. Poppies also frequently adorned statues of other Greek gods, symbolizing nocturnal oblivion. The physician Muhammad ibn Zakaria Al-Razi of Persian origin, 9th century AD, maintained a laboratory and school in Baghdad. He made use of opium and anesthesia and recommended its use for the treatment of melancholy. The renowned Andalusian surgeon Abu al-Qasim al-Zakhrawi, Abu Qasis for short, 10th centuries AD, relied on opium and mandrake as surgical anesthetics. The Persian physician Abu Ali al-Hussein ibn Sina, also known as Avicenna, described opium as the most powerful of the treatments in comparison to mandrake and other highly effective herbs in the canon of medicine. The text lists several medical effects of opium, such as analgesia, hypnosis, antitussive effects, gastrointestinal effects, cognitive effects, respiratory depression, neuromuscular disturbances, and sexual dysfunction. It also refers to opium's potential as a poison. Avicenna describes several methods of delivery and recommendations for doses of the drug. The use of opium was introduced to Western medicine in 1527, when Philippus Aurelius Theophilus Bombastus von Hohenheim, that's a funny name, better known by the name Paracelsus, returned from his wanderings in Arabia with the famous sword, within the pommel of which he kept stones of immortality compounded from opium, citrus juice, and the quintessence of gold. Compared to other chemicals available to 18th century European physicians, opium was a benign alternative to the arsenics, mercuries, or emetics, and it was remarkably successful in alleviating a wide range of ailments. Due to the constipation often produced by the consumption of opium, it was one of the most effective treatments for cholera, diarrhea, and dysentery. As a cough suppressant, opium was used to treat bronchitis, tuberculosis, and other respiratory illnesses. Opium was additionally prescribed for rheumatism and insomnia. Opium is said to have been used for recreational purposes from the 14th century onwards in Muslim societies. Ottoman and European testimonies confirm that from the 16th to 19th centuries, Anatolian opium was eaten in Constantinople as much as it was exported to Europe. In 1573, for instance, a Venetian visitor to the Ottoman Empire observed many of the Turkish natives of Constantinople regularly drank a certain black water made with opium that made them feel good, but to which they became quickly addicted, and if they tried to go without, they will quickly die. From drinking it, dervishes claimed the drugs bestowed them with visionary glimpses of the future happiness. Indeed, the Ottoman Empire supplied the West with opium long before China and India. Opium was widely used in the West until 1891, California law that was passed requiring that narcotics carry warning levels and that their sales be recorded in a registry. Amendments to the California Pharmacy and Poison Act in 1907 made it a crime to sell opiates without a prescription, and bans on possession of opium or opiate pipes in 1909 were enacted. Beginning in 1883, opium importation was taxed at $6 to $300 per pound, until the Opium Exclusion Act of 1909 prohibited the importation of opium altogether. In a similar manner, the Harrison Narcotics Tax Act of 1914, passed in fulfillment of the International Opium Convention of 1912, nominally placed a tax on the distribution of opiates, but served as a de facto prohibition of the drugs. In Australia, smoking and possession was prohibited in 1908. In 1909, the International Opium Commission was founded, and by 1914, 34 nations had agreed that the production and importation of opium should be diminished. In 1924, 62 nations participated in a meeting of the Commission. Subsequently, the law passed to the League of Nations, and all signatory nations agreed to prohibit the import, sale, distribution, export, and use of all narcotic drugs, except for medical and scientific purposes. With the passing of the Rollerstone Act in Britain in 1926, doctors were allowed to prescribe opiates such as morphine and heroin if they believed their patients demonstrated a medical need. Because addiction was viewed as a medical problem rather than an indulgence, doctors were permitted to allow patients to wean themselves off opioids, rather than cutting off any opiate use altogether. Opium was prohibited in many countries during the early 20th century, leading to the modern pattern of opium production as a precursor for illegal recreational drugs or tightly regulated, highly taxed, legal prescription drugs. In 1980, 2,000 tons of opium supplied all legal and illegal uses. Worldwide production in 2006 was 6,610 metric tons, about one-fifth the level of production in 1906. Since then, opium production has fallen. In 2002, the price for 1 kilogram of opium was $300 for the farmer, $800 for purchases in Afghanistan, and $16,000 on the streets of Europe before conversion into heroin. Currently, opium production is once again on the rise. The total area under opium poppy cultivation in Afghanistan was roughly 224,000 hectares in 2020, which is an increase of 37%, or 61k hectares when compared to 2019. At 224,000 hectares, the area under cultivation was one of the highest ever measured.